Welcome to Reviews, where we just review everything. And today we're going to review a series of books called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. They were written by Alvin Schwartz, and perhaps more importantly, they were drawn by Stephen Gammell. So, how were you introduced to these books, Kurt?
I got introduced to the books through a friend. He had the sequel to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark called More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And I read that book and was just mesmerized by the ghost stories and the scary stories, and the pictures by Stephen Gammell was awesome. So that's how I got introduced to the series, and I started reading all three of the books, and very awesome. And still to this day, the best scary stories I've ever read.
Yeah, I was introduced to them around 5th grade. I was kind of bored, and my teacher had a whole set of books beside her desk or whatever, and I was just flipping through them, and I actually came across the third one first, and opened it up, just started reading it, and I couldn't sleep for 2 months after that.
Oh yeah, the More Tales to Chill Your Bones was just as good as the other two. They were all good and unique in their own way. Each book brought a story that was unique. And that's what I liked about it. It wasn't like one book just totally sucked. It wasn't like movies where the first one's good, second one's okay, third one sucks. No, with these books, it was the first one scary, second one scary, third one scary, in its own unique, particular way.
Yeah, I think the stories in this book are really, some are really good. They kind of make you think, or maybe they make you feel a certain way, or make you feel disturbed in a certain way. Some are just kind of awkward, and they're not really horror stories. They're just kind of happenstance stories. But what brings this book to life really is the Stephen Gammell art.
That's what gave everybody nightmares. I mean, the stories were scary enough, but Stephen Gammell didn't allow you to use your imagination for the stories. He said, "Look, this is what the damn story looks like," and you picture that world as you're reading it, and it made it horrifying to be 8 or 9 years old reading that.
Yeah, and since Gammell provides you with what the story looks like, it just makes it look, because the way you see Gammell's art is the way you see the stories playing through.
Him and Schwartz knew what they were doing. That was a killer combination right there.
Yeah, just a little more on Gammell's art. If you've never actually read the books or picked up books or anything, they're all in black and white. They all have kind of a very surrealistic aspect to them. It's very odd, and I guess that's very fitting for a horror book. But a lot of horror books really don't pay too much attention. They just kind of go with maybe cliched art. Like if it's a vampire, they'll just draw a vampire with blood in his teeth or really long nails or something like that. But Stephen Gammell made something that was surreal and disturbing to look at. So I think it just sets up the whole mood of the book.
And another thing that always sets up the mood of the book besides the pictures is the introduction. Like the introduction to each to the whole book always has something that tells you about what you're about to read. Like, these stories will take you to a scary and mysterious place. These stories and it sets you up. It already gets you in a creepy mood, and then you start reading them, and even as an adult, they're still scary. And these books are just awesome. And like in the first Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, like one of my favorite stories was The Thing, and the picture of that was awesome. The guy in suspenders, the skeleton face, and that story, if you haven't read it, I don't want to ruin it for y'all. Read that story, but read the whole book. The whole book, grown, small, it's scary. It's good, scary fun. And when I was a little kid, I used to have my friends stay over, and we'd read the book at night, and it was just fantastic. It was a great read.
Yeah, I guess we'll go into some of our favorite stories from the whole trilogy of books. One of mine is the wolf.
The White Wolf.
Yeah,
yes.
The White Wolf. This is one of those stories that's it's kind of odd. I don't know if you'd say scary, but it's just kind of odd and then maybe a little bit disturbing. But the reason I like it is because it's almost it's almost like Twilight Zone moral story.
It's almost like that. Like
yeah,
very much
it's
so.
very much like that. If you've ever watched Twilight Zone, or if you're a fan of Twilight Zone, it has that storytelling where at the end there's some kind of moral to learn, or there's some kind of irony, or there's some kind of
something you didn't see coming, and it just hits you.
Yeah, and White Wolf is really that kind of a story, and it's one of my favorite ones because of what the message I guess is, which I won't give away. Another one that I like is Bed by the Window. Again, it's also kind of like a Twilight Zone type of deal.
That's in more Scary Trail.
But this one is very interesting because most of the stories have a supernatural aspect. This one doesn't. This one doesn't at all. It's just about two old immigrants who well, I won't give the story away, but yeah, it's a very interesting story, and there's no supernatural aspect. But again, when you read them, you sort of get this disturbed.
It's very Twilight Zone. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's very Twilight Zone in the fact that some of the stories are not scary, but they screw with your mind because they're so odd and they're so weird, and you'll find yourself thinking about it later. Like, you'll be at home watching TV and that story will pop in your head. These stories have that effect on you. And in the first book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the story that really sticks out to me, I told y'all The Thing, but the other one that really stuck out to me...
that's also one of my favorites.
Yeah, The Thing has a great ending. And I like The White Wolf, but there was also the Girl Who Stole in the Grave. That was a good one because it's not so much supernatural as it's just like, damn, did that really happen? You know, you read it and you're like, God, it's scary in the fact that it's not scary, if that makes any sense. And these books also started, these were the beginning of the guys calling from upstairs. You know, there's a story called The Babysitter, which is about
a lot of urban legends.
A lot of urban legends. There's the High Beam story, which is one of my favorites in there. Definitely read High Beams. Great ending. The Babysitter had a great ending. And the story that everybody hears about, the gown that's haunted and kills people, that one's in it. You know, the first book was really set up the tone for what the rest of the books were going to be, and they were awesome.
Yeah, they also something that's really cool is that the writer doesn't just basically what he did is he went around and collected a bunch of stories, and on some he put his own spin on them, but a lot of these stories have been told and retold and retold. He sort of pulls them from history, scary stories that people have been telling themselves, and the intro really sets up a lot of the history behind a lot of the stories, but also in the very back, it goes into a little bit further. It explains some of the stories a little more, maybe if you didn't get it or what, and just goes through a little bit of history, which I thought was a good touch, and just added a little more to the book. It's not just a book about scary stories, but it's also a study on what stories have people told over time and why they tell them, really. There is one story in the whole trilogy that's based on a true story. It's called...
Talking about the What's Going On Here, the Poltergeist?
Yeah, it's a poltergeist story. If you're a fan of sort of the ghost hunting or paranormal or anything like that, that was my first exposure to really, I guess,
to the whole poltergeist ghost.
Yeah,
thing.
the whole paranormal genre was, I was reading this story when I was younger, and then when I read that it was based on a true story, and they changed all the names of the people and everything, I was like, oh. So if you're any kind of fan of that's actually one that's stuck with me.
Yeah, the ones that yeah, if we're talking about like, cause that's in Scary Stories 3, More Stories to Chill Your Bones. The one that really messed with me, and that one was the Wolf Girl, about the little girl that was raised by wolves. Because if you look at the picture in there, my God, that is the creepiest picture I've ever seen. And the story's real creepy.
And what makes that story creepy and scary, I think,
that's a true story too, I believe.
Well, not just that, but or not just whether if it's true or not. I mean, but you know, we don't have to get into feral children, but it's just the idea. Mm-hmm. It's the idea of a wolf girl, that a girl raised by wolves apparently or whatever, mm-hmm. and acts like them, and is. It's just the idea that I think makes it so creepy, and yeah, and the picture really brings that out, and just makes it creepy.
Yeah, that one scared me, and More Tales to Chill Your Bones. I mean, and some of these books do have some really weird, like stupid stories that are just like that end real suddenly, and you're like, what the hell was the point of that?
Oh yeah, one of the, I guess when we talk about some of the bad things about the book. One of the bad things about the book is that some of the books do have, I'd say about a quarter of the stories are screamers.
Oh yeah.
This was back before you had screamer videos. People used to just tell a really creepy story, and everybody would get really into it, and people would even lean in and get real into it. And the whole punchline of the story is that you scare them. You sort of scream and then you scare them.
And that takes away from the scariness of the story when they write that.
Yeah, and these books were written during that time when people did that. So I guess if you were reading this book to somebody or to a group or whatever, you would probably get enjoyment from that. But now people don't do that anymore, or seldom do that. And a lot of the stories that are screamers, you kind of wish that that they weren't.
Yeah.
You kind of wish that the stories would have an ending as to what happened and all this other thing.
What's so?
Like there's this one story. I mean, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, because it's just so lame. But there's this one story where it starts out real creepy, and this man loses his dog, and he can't find him around the house, and he just assumes he ran away or died or something. And then one night he hears noise in the attic. He goes up, and then he screams, and then the whole thing is like, well, what happened? And then the whole punchline is, well, he stepped on a nail or something like that. You would scream too
if you stepped on a nail.
Yeah, and it's just really corny stuff, endings like that.
But you know
some stories do have that.
Those stories do have that, but all in all, they're three great books. And what fascinated me was, as I got older, became a teenager and became, a grown man like I am now, I read ghost stories and other books, and none of them come close to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It just boggles my mind that these books were so good that I wish they would have made more, because no ghost stories, scary stories were ever as good as these. I mean, nothing. These books were the best.
Just one last one of my favorite ones. There's one called Wait Till Martin Comes, and one of the reasons I like this one is because it's dark humor. It's really dark comedy, which if you do it right is actually the most, in my opinion, is the most interesting kind of comedy. But it just, if you laugh or if you get scared, it's supposed to do both. If you can imagine doing that. But
so I would say definitely check out these books. There's three of them. There's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark 3, More Tales to Chill Your Bones. This is Kurt and Hector saying check these books out.
Yeah, so I definitely give all three books. I'll say.
I give them 5 stars.
I'll say 9. I'll give them like a 9.8 as far as what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be light reading horror art.
That's exactly what they are.
I'll give it a 9.8. I would give it a perfect 10, but just some of the stories in it, they're so weak.
And out of place.
I mean, literally, if Stephen Gammell didn't have a picture next to them, it would be a waste of space.
But the Stephen Gammell, that dude should have wrote some damn comic books. That was the best artist I've ever seen. Well, illustrator.
So what do you give him from 1 to 10?
I give him a 10, but that's just because even for the weaker stories, the other stories make up for them. And the art.
It's definitely not so bad that it disappoints, but
the book, the atmosphere that the book has, no other book has ever done that to me. I've never read a book and been in the atmosphere like this book did.
Yeah. Another kind of bad thing is, well, I guess these were meant for a younger audience or whatever, so they are a bit short. They are pretty thin books, but if you just take them from what they're supposed to be, you'll get around that.
These books were almost banned too. I mean, that's how.
Oh yeah, that's just kind of an interesting thing. This was the most challenged.
Yeah, the most challenged children's book ever.
In the 1990s, it was the most challenged book.
1980s.
90s.
Oh, was it 90s?
It's not that old.
Well, yeah, it was when I was in 89, 88.
Okay, maybe.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
But yeah, it was the most challenged book. It almost didn't come out.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of see why that would happen because I wasn't a very verbal kid when I was younger, but I can imagine a bunch of kids not sleeping and saying, "Well, Mom, I read a really scary book," and then looking at it and getting a bit angry over it.
Hell yeah.
But
that's scary.
Well, I guess that wraps up the book review.
Well, leave your comments on YouTube.
And shoot us an email. It'll be in the info section at the bottom.
Let us know what you think of our review if you left anything out.